Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today, Keenan. Keenan is the CEO and president of one of the top sales consulting firms, A Sales Guy, and is the celebrated author of Not Taught: What It Takes to Be Successful in the 21st Century That Nobody's Teaching You, along with his most recent book, Gap Selling: Getting the Customer to Yes. With over 20 years of sales experience, Keenan was named one of the top 30 social sellers in the world by Forbes, and he was also named the top 50 most influential sales and marketing people by Top Sales World magazine every year since 2012. He's been featured in Harvard Business Journal, Huffington Post, Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc., Forbes. He's personally coached me when I was selling for Google. Keenan, thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you today.
Damn, that just makes me sound old with all that shit.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I know you're busy. You're traveling all over the world. I know you're at the hotel right now and you're able to squeeze us in. So I appreciate that. And just to level set real quick, the audience is dying to know two things. Number one, sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Keenan, what is your top sales secret? If you had to go back in time to when you first started in selling, could only tell yourself one secret to maximize your sales success, what is that secret? But before you give out all the goods, my man, the audience is also dying to know, who the hell is Keenan, man? Who's this guy showing up with the red dress shirts all over social media and speaking everywhere? Like, where are you from? How did you get started in sales? And then we all want to learn about all the places that you worked in sales and the successes and failures that you've learned from to level up to do the next sales gig. And the next sales gig, we call these micro secrets. So without further ado, I'd love to just learn more about who Keenan is, where you're from, and how you got started in sales.
Oh, snap. That's a lot. So we'll just start with the sales piece, and I'll let people figure out who Keenan is through that, right? Other than the fact that I'm a dad of 3 dope girls, 13, 11, and 8. And
that's awesome, man.
They've
Congrats.
changed my view on a whole bunch of things. So how did I get started in sales? Look, that was my first career. But I got started in sales probably when I was 10, because
wow, super early.
It was just natural for me. It was just straight natural, right? Whether it was I didn't come from a rich family, I didn't come from a poor family, but my mom didn't have money to dole out to us. Plus it was the 70s. My parents didn't dole out money to kids anyways, even if they had it, right? So if I wanted candy, if I wanted almost anything, I had to figure out how to make it, right? So I was a kid who was doing lemonade stands. I was the kid who was walking around selling stuff door to door. I was the kid who would stop at the little, because back then you had penny candy and nickel candy, but right, stop at the store and get those Jolly Rancher sticks for a nickel, and then I'd go into school and sell them for $0.25. And then the teacher would get mad at me and take them away. In hindsight, every one of those teachers should have been fired, because that's an entrepreneur. Like, you don't squash that in a kid. But anyway, so right. I was always working the angle. And then as I got older and older, I just got more proficient at it, and it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about influence, right? All my friends wanted to play a game, and I wanted to play something different. I convinced them all we should play my game instead. It's sort of like that Tom Sawyer. If you ever read the book Tom Sawyer?
I don't think so.
So if you read the book Tom Sawyer, it opens up with him painting a fence. Like his aunt or uncle, I can't remember who, told him he had to paint a fence. And it's a hot summer day, and all his friends having fun doing other stuff. And he's sitting there painting, and his friends come and goes, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm having a blast painting this fence." And then, "Don't you want to?" "No, I'm having so much fun." And by the end of the first section of the book, first chapter, 3 pages, he's sitting back hanging out, and they're all painting the fence for him, right? So that was sort of my thing. I could just influence people. And so that's how my sales career started. And so when I actually got paid for it or got a job for it, I had been doing it, in a million different ways. I got myself into college with a 1.5 GPA. I actually convinced them to accept me into college, right?
That's awesome.
Right. That's a sale. When I traveled around the world on a boat.
There's a micro secret, dude. If it doesn't matter what your GPA is. If you got a 1.5, you could be successful in sales and write sales books and now coach sales teams globally.
Your whatchamacallit doesn't matter. You know, I had a 2.8 GPA, and there was a semester at sea, this trip around the world on a boat, literally circumnavigate the world, right?
Oh my
I got
gosh.
a full paid scholarship on that, even though one of the requirements for the scholarship was a 3.0. I had a 2.8, and I still got the full scholarship to go around the world. That was a sale. So again, all long before I started selling for a living, I had learned the fundamentals of sales through life.
What the hell? There's a class where you get to roll in a yacht around the world, or what is that?
Cruise ship. It's called semester at sea, and you get credit while you're at sea, like a whole semester of credits. It's dope. It was the best thing I ever did.
I should have done like 17 of those in school, man.
Dude,
that was amazing.
500 college students. We went to Russia, Turkey, Greece, China, Taiwan, Malaysia, India, Egypt, Morocco. Dude, it was fire.
Yeah, that's dope. I'm super jealous. So, okay. So even while you were in school, did you know, like, hey, once I graduate, I want to go into sales?
No, I don't think I knew sales was a thing. And I mean, maybe I did, but I didn't connect it, but it wasn't a conscious, clear thing. I ended up in sales because I was down in South Beach, Miami, when I was a lot younger and had a lot more hair, and I was pretty good looking, and I was modeling. I modeled for several years, folks like Tommy Hilfiger and
oh, no shit. I didn't know that, dude. That's awesome. Like modeling in Miami?
Yeah. And
that's great. I got to try to Google some of these images, dude.
I have some. Wait, I'll see. Wait, hold. We'll have fun with this. So I was down there, and I won't go into the long story, but modeling, like anything else that's subjective, is very difficult. Like one person can like you, another doesn't. It's like acting, right? So sometimes you get good gigs, sometimes you don't. And so I was struggling. I mean, you know, I was having a blast, but I was struggling. And I was 26 or 7, and a buddy called me up. He said, Keenan, you need to come back to Denver. I got a job for you. It's selling for the Chamber of Commerce. This is what they do. You'll make like $50K a year. And I was like, and this was in 1996. I'm like, $50K? Like, that's $1,000 a week. What can I could do with $1,000 a week, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, within it's where all the big people, the movers and shakers of Denver, it's where they hang out. So within a year, you'll meet some of them and you'll have a new job. So I said, okay. And I came home and did. He was exactly right. Within 1 year from there, I had a new job that was making $110,000 and before commission. So that was it. That was how I did sales. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing with modeling too, like why I love sales is you can control everything, like modeling or acting. My sister's an actress for Netflix and Bravo in LA. And like, you can't control how you look.
Nope.
You know, and then like, they're just looking for a specific look. And if you don't fit it, you're out.
Yep.
And like, that's so stressful compared to sales. Like you could sell to anyone, anything, as long as it delivers value to them.
It's more of a meritocracy that way.
Yeah. Meritocracy. Right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, micro secret there, you know, sales is great because it's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you joined the Chamber of Commerce.
There you go.
Oh, dude, you're jacked. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah. There's another one right there. Right. That's me back in the day, dog.
Oh, dude, you need to change your profile picture to one of those for sure.
Yeah, maybe on Throwback Thursdays, one of these days. Mm-hmm.
That is so funny. Okay, so you joined the Chamber of Commerce. Were there any, what was the big learning, takeaway, failure there that you had before you joined the next big thing?
There was the biggest one for me there was, this was in 1997. So the whole idea of CRM was just coming together. I mean, I think Goldmine existed and I think ACT existed, but they weren't ubiquitous. And so I'd never sold before in my life, and my manager threw me, what was it called? FileMaker Pro or some random, you know what I'm saying, some random application, which basically allowed you to create all your own little fields pretty easy. It wasn't drag and drop, but it was still pretty easy to create fields. And so basically you created your own CRM. And so it was outbound, and you just called business to say, hey, do you want to join the chamber? So as I did it, I learned on the fly, I did it. And they said, call me back or send me this. And I was like, how do I track it? And so I just learned through trial and error how to build a really dope CRM that kept me on top of it.
Funny.
But then it actually taught me how to create a cadence. I had one of the best cadences in the world in 96 before anything like Sales Loft. Nobody knew what a cadence was because I was so afraid of failure because I'd never done this before. There was no training that I just made sure I had to follow up with everybody and had to get back with them. And I was maniacal. And this was my life. I come in on a Monday morning, open up, and see all the people I was supposed to call. the people that told me to call them back, the people that I'd called 5 days early and left a voice message and they didn't get me, so I had to call them again. And I mean, I just had the whole thing laid out. There was no email yet. So that's what I learned, is the importance of a cadence and the importance of a of hustle to keep calling those people back over and over and over.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's funny because FileMaker, I think it was owned by Apple or something. It was a big company back. I mean, I'm pretty sure the product still exists now, because I remember it popping up somewhere a few years ago when I was selling for IBM Interactive. That's too funny. Okay, so then you get approached. Like, did someone that you were selling at the chamber like recruit you, or how'd you move from there? You've got these dope skills with your cadence and your follow up with CRM, and how you notice real quickly that was the lifeblood of selling. Staying on top of these leads, getting them imported in the CRM, executing follow-up. Was someone that you were selling recruited you, or did you go outbound and prospect them for a job? What happened?
So someone I sold a chamber membership. So there were memberships that started at $325, well, maybe $225 back then, all the way up to $10,000, right? But the main ones were gold, bronze, silver, and gold. And bronze was like $325, silver was $500, and gold was $1,000. You got anything over that, like you were swinging for the fences. They had a couple more that one for $2,500, one for $5,000, one for $10,000. So if you sold those, that was good. Well, this new company was moving to Denver. They were an IT consulting firm that was doing really well in Minnesota called Born, and they were in IT. And IT is a cool thing. So when they bought their membership, and he said they were looking to hire a salesperson, I said, I want in. And they said, well, what do you know about sales? I'm sorry, what do you know about IT consulting? I'm like, nothing. And how long have you been selling? I'm like, I don't know, 10 months. They're like, well, I don't know, maybe let us get the office set up and then we'll talk to you. Because the guy who I sold to was impressed how I sold to him, right? So
yeah,
he was
awesome.
He was the lead sales guy, and then the branch manager was coming down from Minnesota. It was really just the two of them. And I was like, well, I could do this. And he's like, look, Richard says good things about you, but let's get set up right away. Look, we got to get someone who hit the ground running, blah, 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 right? And I'll never forget, I looked, his name was Mike Sexy. I looked him right in the eye, and I said, Mike, do you have this person in the pipeline yet? He said, no. I said, well, here then, I challenge you to find that person in a hurry. Because if you don't, you would have had me hired, and that would have been another day that I was learning. And there was a curve here where if it takes too long to find them, I would have been up to speed, and now you're losing. You're at net negative. I challenge you to find that person in a hurry. He laughed at me. He said, yeah, okay, I'll remember that. 2 weeks later, he called me up and said, you son of a bitch, I'm still thinking about you saying I challenge you. They hired me. I became one of their top reps. I got promoted to manager and became a partner in the firm within 2.5 years.
Dude, that's a micro secret. So kind of like when you're out there job searching for sales, and they throw you that type of objection, you just have to be confident and overcome it. Like how or where did you build that confidence, like with less than a year's sales experience?
It wasn't the confidence necessarily it was a confidence in my knowing that I could sell, right? That was never a challenge. I knew you worked your ass off, you could sell. But when I challenged him, it was the confidence in the logic. He felt that it was better to wait and hire someone who understood the space than hire someone who could sell really well now, which I kind of get it. But if he didn't find that person fast enough, he's no longer ahead of the curve. Yeah. So it was just simple math, right? So I had no problem challenging anybody with simple math. Like, okay, that makes sense, but you better hurry and find that person, because if you don't, I would have been on all this time learning, growing, selling, and now it didn't work for you. So I challenged the strategy on logic. That's not hard. Confident.
I love that. I mean, we're trying to do the same thing, because every dollar right now on the streets, it's worth like 15 to 20 as we build a high growth software company. It's like, I don't have time to waste on not hiring people. Okay. So you go to Born, and then you said you went from like sales manager to partner in 2.5 years. So you were selling the IT products. Like, walk me through the micro secrets of being at Born, the successes, failures, and what you learned there that helped you level up to become a partner and then move on to VP.
So the key at all of these is hard work. That's first and foremost, and smart hard work. And I don't want to sound trite or colloquial, but you got to work your ass. You got to be smart. Like, you got to look, assess, value. What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing wrong? What opportunities do I see? What's working? What isn't working? Blah, blah, blah. So you got to be smart, right? And work your ass off. But outside of that, things I learned specifically in this one was about leadership, because this was no longer a transactional sale. right? You had to build relationships with much more depth.
This was like a 6-figure deal.
Yes, and it was IT consulting. So you had to understand the IT world. You had to understand a lot more business. You're selling to larger organizations, so you couldn't just wing it. So understanding of the environment that you're selling into, understanding the complexities of their business, understanding the desired outcomes of their business became so much more important. So that was something I learned. And then again, building relationships around credibility versus around likability was something I learned there, because I was still back in the day of golfing and everything. And I had a couple of relationships where I could go golfing with them all the time. I could call them, and I mean, they lasted for years and years after I left there, but they rarely bought from me.
Yeah.
Right? They would buy a little here and a little there, but nothing huge. And I started to realize it's because I was unable to present myself as a credible value add, right? And so they liked me and they thought we were cool when they talked to me. But at the end of the day, I didn't get nearly as much of the business as I could have if I had moved into a more credible position. So I learned that.
Wow. And when you say credibility, like, so how would you change that? So you and I are buddies, and I'm a VP of sales that you're trying to sell a sales guy to, and we go golfing every month or every quarter, and I haven't given you a dime. Like, what did Born teach you how would you change that going from likable to credible?
I'd stop talking about Born. I'd stop talking about IT consulting. I'd stop talking about the technology, and I'd start talking about where they're trying to get with their business, why they need some particular Outlook rollout, or why they need XYZ VB developer. Like, those are the things, it's long before open source. So they say we need VB developers. Like, okay, what are you trying to build? What are you trying to do with it? Why was that a need in the organization? What problem is it trying to solve? What are the interim fixes that you're addressing now? How is this person going to impact the outcome of that? So I could say, oh, you don't need this, you need this instead. Or what do you mean you only need one? You need two, because you said you have this deadline, and based on this, I'd actually be able to solve their problems, not just be an order taker.
Yeah, I love that. Asking a lot of discovery, really understanding the whole landscape. And it sounds like coming back as like a challenger seller, a consultant seller, versus just being a product pusher.
Problem-centric versus product-centric, baby.
Awesome. Love it. So then you do very well there, by being a leader, focusing on the environment, outcomes of their business, building relationships with credibility versus likability, and stop talking about product and more focused on the customer and the problems that they're trying to solve. That helps you go from manager to partner. And, what made you decide to look at other opportunities? And then I believe you went to ICG next as VP of National Sales there. Tell us about, why you transitioned and then your role at ICG.
In hindsight, I'm glad it went down the way it went down, but I was up for a job. So this company, Born, was expanding really fast. They were opening up new offices. It seemed like every 3 or 4 months, 5 months. Like when I got there, they were the first new office. So when I got there in 97, they have 35 million and 2 offices, Wisconsin and Minnesota. Denver was number 3. When I left, I think there were 7 offices and 180 million, something like that, right?
Holy cow.
And so I was up for one of those offices and got passed over. And they were hugely supportive, and I was very popular, respected, that choice was respected, but I was still pretty young. I was only 31. I'd only been working in the real world for 3 years, right? So they knew this. And so when they overlooked me, they said, look, we really like you. We think you're good. We just think you're a little immature. You need a little more time to develop. And, like any young rising star, I was like, fuck that, man. I'm not working.
Yeah.
And so I had a client that had a client, and their new COO was someone I did a leadership exchange program with through the chamber. I mean, it all comes back together. And
through the chamber, dude, that 10-month stunt at the chamber.
Yeah. So he became COO and brought me in and gave me a big chunk of the sales organization.
Wow, that's awesome. What was the secret to them going from 30 to 180 in 3 years? Like,
the culture.
I try to figure that out every day, and I'm like,
the culture.
So it was just what was
very
special about the culture?
Unbelievably deliberate about the culture. So just for example, one of the things that they talked about that was reinforced every single day was CORF. And they talked about it in recruiting, they talked about it in quarterly meetings, they talked about it all the time. And CORF is challenge, opportunity, reward, and fun. Everybody who works for them is going to have all of those. You have a challenging work environment with tons of opportunity to grow. That's very rewarding. That's a lot of fun, right? Then the next thing they did was They had all kinds of benefits that you wouldn't see elsewhere. Like one of them is for every X amount of employees, they bought a vacation home in the region of, like say Minnesota or Door County, Wisconsin, and Keystone for Denver, et cetera. And each employee of that branch got a free week in that home. So if you were in Denver, you get a free week up in Keystone to ski or spend with your family. If after a certain amount of time they gave everything.
So they would like buy these homes and then give it to the team, let the team
use them,
stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to do the same with a Florida spot because we're here in Ohio. And it's so cold.
They just had tons of perks and benefits like that. Oh, they took the entire team and all the customers to opening baseball game in Minnesota, and then each branch. So those were a blast. You'd send them out to all your customers, and your customers would show up, and so everybody would spend a day with Born, at an opening baseball game in your local area. So they just did tons and tons and tons of stuff like that.
Oh, I love that. So okay, so you get the offer from the guy that you worked with at the Chamber of Commerce to join ICG. He gave you a huge region, or it sounds like half the states or whatever. What were you selling at ICG, and how?
So
how'd that go?
Excuse me. It was managed modem services. So basically, it was the final days of dial-up, and it was the access ports for all the people who provided dial-up. So when you dialed up, you literally got a hidden number. And so if you were AOL, if you were Cable and Wireless, or whoever, and you kept adding subscribers, you'd need more and more ports to send the traffic through. So we sold that.
Okay. Was there a lot of competition with that, or was it like one player?
No, there was a lot, but there was a huge demand. But it really didn't matter because, I got in late. I don't think I really understood the technology at the time or the impact. Didn't see high speed coming, and so I got the job in November of 1999 or very early 2000, somewhere in there. And by the end of the year, I was there just a year. They went bankrupt.
Oh shit! That's tough.
Yeah, $1 billion company. And they just started going the wrong direction. And
all because of product like your biggest learning experience there, working at a company that wasn't innovating, wasn't building the right tech. Like what is the micro secret?
I don't think they had the infrastructure. Like even if they wanted to, I don't think they could have gone to DSL, right? Yeah. Because they were CLEC, and so they were leasing all their stuff from the RBox anyways, right? Regional Bell operating carriers, whatever they're called. So even if they wanted to, I don't think they could have. I think they just found themselves in a good position, grew really fast, made lots of money, were around for like 5 or 6 years from the Telecom Act of 94, whatever it was. I'm butchering all this stuff, but anyways, but then it just changed, and I don't think there's anything they could have done.
Okay, got it. And then anything big that you learned there as a takeaway before you went?
More leadership. That was a big leadership role. The importance of spending time in the trenches with your team, setting a direction for your team, making sure that you led with purpose, and that leadership is different than management. Because I had layers below me. I had directors, managers, and individual contributors.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. Okay. So it goes bankrupt. Did you feel like you were just crushed, or did you already have a gig lined up after that?
No, I was not crushed. I was a little upset because it was going to be hard to stay at that level. I didn't do it long enough, and I got there so fast. So the hard part was trying to stay at that level. So I just decided to start my own business, and not worth all the time on that one, but didn't work out.
Got it. And then, so it didn't, you started your own business, didn't work out, and then you went back to selling, right? Which, by the way, selling and entrepreneurship, in my opinion, are like the same thing. It's just one you're doing for someone else, and the other you're doing for yourself, and you have a shitload of risk and 10x more response. Like anyone out there that sees Keenan in her eye, just like you have to work so hard and spend so much money, and you don't make nearly as much as when you were just selling for someone else. So it doesn't work out. You're probably like, I'm out of cash, I'm out of time.
Exactly. Exactly. I was out of cash at the time.
And then you went to what, Intrado?
Yep.
Awesome. That's always my thing. Like I've built 2 multi-million-dollar businesses, and I built one that lost millions. And the second that lost millions, I was like, dude, I'm just going into sales. Like easy. Like start anything, and if you're a salesperson, it doesn't work out, just go back into sales. Okay, so tell me about Intrado. Now, did you go into Intrado like tired, exhausted, and beat up? Because I know when you launch your own company,
other way around.
Really, you're like, I'm done with the entrepreneurial bullshit. I'm ready to sell.
Well, no, it was just, I ran out of money and I had a huge opportunity in front of me and I got tired of being broke. So I was basically just pumped to have a new opportunity, like something I could go make work and blow up.
Oh, that's awesome. And what was it? Oh, so it was in wireless, right?
Mm-hmm. It was wireless 911.
So wireless 911, like you just hit a button and it calls.
So basically they worked with the, oh my God, what are they called? They're called, it'll come to me in a second. All the acronyms will come back. But they work with the PSAPs, which are the people who do all the 911 dialing. So they had a division for, and then we'd help. Oh boy, it's been a long time. So basically, had a bunch of services that helped, let's say, big companies, big telephone companies, with updating their records. There's a big service. Like, so if you're a telephone company back in the day when POTS was still much more common, anytime somebody moved, anytime there were any changes, any address changes, any new developments built, like all that had to be funneled and put into the record of the PSAP. And I forget what that record's called, right? So they did that service for the incumbents. Then they also did similar services and stuff like that for the CLECs. So then that was right about the time that VoIP was coming around. So VoIP callers needed some type of 911 service and addressed with that. So then they started doing that. Then we also had wireless. And so they actually built triangulation and helped direct the wireless calls correctly. So they had all of these 911 services, and they worked between the city governments and the PSAPs and the telephone companies to deliver 911.
That's awesome. What I don't know anything about that technology, but what'd you learn there for 3 years?
The importance of understanding the business. So again, leadership, just more work on the leadership. I built the most successful sales team they had there. It was also where I learned the most about politics, and that I'm not good at playing politics. I built the most successful sales team there.
How? Most successful sales team, how? How did you do it?
I think I got dumb luck, but I just hired the best possible people, built a lot of processes around managing the team to make sure that we were good, leveraged some of the stuff I learned at Born about building culture and identity. I mean, we were like a cult almost. We all sit together at lunch and be laughing our asses off and having a good time. And the rest of the company would see that and they'd want to hang out with us. Like, we were the cool kids at the company. And some people hated us because of how much fun we were having and what we were doing and the success we were having. And so getting rid of the people that didn't fit in, a couple people that didn't fit in, we just got rid of those.
It's smart.
Real high level expectations. I had very high expectations of my teams and still do. So, we built a killer team, and here's the irony and where I learned about the politics, how jacked up it is. So my team was flying. There was another team that wasn't doing so well. My team was responsible for selling to the CLECs and to VoIP providers, right?
Okay.
And at the time when we were selling to VoIP providers, there was no mandate on 911. A lot of them just wanted to do it for legal reasons, but there was no mandate, right? So the COO comes to me and says, Keenan, whatever you've done with this team is smoking. This team over here, the wireless team, isn't doing as well. We're going to switch you and the head of the wireless team. So the head of the wireless team is going to come over here and manage your team now. We want you to replicate what you did with your team to the wireless team, right? Fast forward, 4 or 5 months, the government mandates 911 for VoIP. We're the only ones who provide it. The guy that got my position made $1 million that year.
No.
Yes. On all of the stuff that was in our pipeline, we had been waiting to close it. They said they weren't going to do it. They were waiting. And then I had to fix his jacked up team.
Were you able to replicate it to the other team? I feel like it's hard to create that on a team that's not performing. Like, you had to be like the turnaround king with that team. Like, did you pull it off or no?
No. So in the beginning, it was very bumpy, super bumpy. And that's where I learned a little bit about the politics. So they wouldn't let me. So this new team was a different group of guys. I didn't hire them. They had a different culture. They had a different identity. Some of them had been with the company for a really long time. They had done things a certain way. And I was the new guy with new views, et cetera. And I just came in and started trying to, just
change.
Impose. And they were like, and as I pushed, my management started beating me up because they were coming and complaining. I'm like, you told me to do this. Now you're telling me to do it differently than I did it before. So you come in and then you don't let me do what I do. This is jacked.
Yeah. Won't work.
No. So they
it sounds like a lot of those guys didn't change.
No.
Another micro secret. Sales, so much shit changes 24/7. You have to be cool with changing anything anytime. AI, automation, personalization, scaling, predictability. I mean, there's so much change going on, the way people communicate, everything. So the politics was brutal. And you talked about hiring the best people. Do you have any secrets around hiring the best salespeople? This is something that I get wrong because I just find opportunity in everyone. And then I hire the wrong people who I don't know. I'm trying to nail this. I'm sure there's a lot of other people. Any secrets around that on how you hired the best people?
No, the only thing that I found to be 100% is the person or the type of person who is creative and just goes after it no matter what. Even if they screw it up, they win. There aren't many of those people. So finding people who are good at sales, who just
hustle and creative.
Hustle and creative. That's
grit. I would say probably grit too. Just make shit happen.
So people make shit happen. You get those people, they are successful. But there aren't many of those people. So you think I'd be better at this, but my track record in hiring salespeople isn't as good as I'd like to say it is.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's definitely an area I need to figure out.
My company as a whole does better. So my recruiting division of the company does better than I do personally.
Yeah, same here. My people do way better than me at recruiting, which now I'm like, all right, I'm back. Don't let me hire anyone anymore. Yeah. So, you join this team, doesn't work out. Well, the guy gets rich who takes over your territory. The other VP, that's brutal. And then you had this idea to start a social network, right? Create Buzz. So this is your Create Buzz, second startup, right? And you're like, I'm going to quit Intrado and go full-time on Create Buzz. So this is all about creating content, finding content, sharing content. I don't know a lot about it.
It was a cool idea and probably could have worked. And my lesson out of that is you got to listen to other people. You can't be, and you got to ask more questions. You can't be married to your idea. So basically Create Buzz was
That's a micro secret, by the way. So listen to other people. Don't be married to your ideas.
Your original idea, yeah.
That's how my second business failed and I lost millions, was not listening to other people and not changing my idea.
Yeah. So Create Buzz was basically a way for, the vision was for, remember this is in 2005. So we're pretty early in the content creation stage, right? And the idea was that people could build their own page and upload all their own content in the area or space that was of interest to them. So there was a taxonomy that let's say you wrote a mother's blog, right? So there'd be a blogging category, and then there'd be a sports category, and there'd be, I can't even remember anymore. There'd be all these specific categories.
Like niche social networks.
Yes, like niche social networks. Yep. And when you came to the homepage, it was broken up by video, pictures, blogs, or text. And there's one other. Shame on me for not being remember. Jeez, I'm getting old. Hope in 10 more years I'm not freaking Alzheimer's. But anyways, there was one more. And so each of those, they had an algorithm that would move all the best content to the homepage. But then on the left, all the taxonomies were there. So let's say you clicked on sports, and you went to sports, you'd see the top sports videos, the top sports pictures, the top sports blog posts, and music, or whatever.
Sick.
Right? So then no matter where you went, whatever page, you'd see and it was the top 8, Create Buzz, right? So if the top 8, you could see more.
I love that.
But so that way you could own the most for your page. Let's say you could own the most for skiing and someone else could own the most for windsurfing, but then the top of sports would roll up to top of sports. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And then top of sports and top of mommy bloggers and top of blah, 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 and that would roll up to the homepage. And it had this algorithm that recalculated it every day and did all this stuff. And it was great. I mean, it was a great way to find content. But the lesson that I learned was Brad Feld of Foundry Group, venture capital firm. He met with me, and I'll never forget it. He said, okay, interesting idea. He said, but why are you making people upload their own content? Why don't you build an API that pulls content in? Because it's just too much work. He said, it's just too much work.
People are lazy.
Yeah, to run around and keep uploading and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really understand the concept of an API. I didn't ask enough questions. I was just so married on my own idea. It didn't even, not only did it not register, I didn't even go back and say, guys, how would we do this? And do you think it would work? It just in one ear out the other until it failed, and I got a little further in my career and understood what API was. And that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, Brad's great. I think I pitched him before. He's a smart guy. So, all right, it didn't work out. Back to sales, right?
Back to sales, yep.
Like, this is an easy formula, dude. Sales, entrepreneurship doesn't work out. Back to sales. Like, okay, so then you've got so much telco experience. You join Avaya, right, as VP sales leader for merging service providers.
Yep.
Okay, and you're there for another 3 years. Tell me about Avaya. I mean, Avaya is huge. Did you love?
Hated it.
Hated it, because, like, why? Just too big and like politics and shit.
It was too big, politics. Never thought you're getting anything done. They went through a bankruptcy, bought by a PE firm. Different management. The guy that hired me was gone within like 3 or 4 months or something. Wow. I mean, it was a shit show. I hated it. I couldn't. Didn't want to get up in the morning.
So you literally were at that job where you didn't want to get up in the morning for 3 years?
Well, I think it probably started about a year and a half in. But yeah, way too long. Yeah.
Do you wish you would have left sooner?
No, because it was right in the middle of the economic downturn. So even though I hated it.
2007 to 2010. Yeah.
I hated it.
You're not leaving anything.
Blessed. Yeah, was making money. I had just gotten married. I had a kid. If I had lost that job, are you freaking kidding me? I don't even know where because remember, I just failed in a business. So it's not like I had millions saved.
Funds.
Right? Yeah.
Right. No, you burned through everything.
Yeah. And when I left.
It takes millions to start these companies.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I was happy as pig and shit to have that job, even though I hated getting up and doing it.
Yeah, you were just like, no matter what, I'm just going to do this because I got to provide for my wife and kid. Awesome. Learning, biggest successes, failures, takeaways, learning experiences.
Nothing to even address there. It's just all negative.
Oh, God. That's tough. Yeah, okay, well then.
Okay, I'll give you one.
There's got to be something like, how did you fight through that adversity of waking up every day hating it?
I took care. I didn't blame anybody for anything. I just focused on myself and did what I could do. You know what I'm saying? The biggest takeaway is if you think people are smarter than you, you're a fool, right? Some people are smarter than you and others aren't, and you can't just default to the fact that they are. So one of the things I noticed when I was working there is that they kept talking about trying to improve the desk phone. Right? Because that's one of the things they sold, right? And they were, I forget what it was called. They had this new desk phone that had all these bells and whistles and blah, blah, blah. And you've seen Avaya and Cisco phones on people's desks, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, if you think people are going to have desk phones in 10 more years, you're high. I mean, okay, yes, in call centers maybe in a few situations, but people aren't going to have their own desk phones, number one. Number two, more and more people working from home, so they're just going to use their cell phones or their home phone. So why are you trying to go out and create this new phone? I said, why you even think you're a phone company is beyond me. I said, if you guys really want to win in this game, you're going to start looking at yourself like a communications company and look at how communications has changed. And I said, what you need to do is I think you should go buy Yammer. This was when Yammer, way before Microsoft. I said, this is a communication channel. Start embracing different forms of communication. Maybe you can learn how to integrate them into the phone systems, integrate them into call centers or Snap or chats. I don't know. I'm not that smart, but I do know that communication is not a phone anymore. And all your phone is on phone. So let's get into the communication space. They would just chuckled at me. I rolled out Yammer, and I remember my boss said, I'm not touching that. Stupid. I'm never using it. I'm like, you dipshit. And now look where we are.
Yeah. And then what? Microsoft bought them for
for $4 billion.
Crazy. Bill.
4 Bs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So this company itself isn't worth anything close to that. So they had bought Yammer. If nothing else, they could have turned around and sold it to someone who got the cash infusion they needed to do something else. But no, they didn't listen to me for it might have been watered down a duck's back.
Yeah. It was a $1.2 billion acquisition.
That's it. 1.2. Yep.
God,
and I told him to buy it when Yammer was small, dude. I said he probably could have picked it up for $100 million is what I said.
I mean, critical for enterprise collaboration. I remember that's why.
They were talking UC, Unified Communications. I'm like, well, how do you do UC if you're not having some sort of, non-hardware anyways? See?
Yeah, so it's a bad experience. No one's listening to anything, and it's a tough time with the economy. You get an opportunity to join 2Wire.
My boss at Vi, who I actually did like, took me over there. Same thing. I needed a job. It was still in the recession. Nothing to talk about. Boom. Move on.
Cool. So then at 2Wire, you go from 2Wire to launching a sales guy consulting, right? So let's talk about that transition, because that's interesting. And I mean, by the way, during all of this time, you're like doing millions of hours skiing, right? How do you manage, by the way, like, I want to get into Two Wired as sales guy, but like, have you been like, are you skiing like crazy during all of these sales gigs?
I ski every weekend.
Okay. So it's like a hobby, like skiing, like working out, or a hobby. Like you do it for, I snowboard. Dude, I couldn't believe I only like just started going to Colorado and Utah for snowboarding. Actually, I just went like 3 years ago for the first time. Dude, that blows your mind, dude. It's amazing. I'm going to have you show me a few things out there. So, Two Wire to a sales guy. Like, and by the way, guys, like, you know, Keenan had personally coached me when I was selling for Google at a Google search agency, like, 8 years ago. Before you had the books, you were just starting to do it. Like, I don't know at that time how far the company was along or not. I just remember I was asking Jeff, you know, my chief revenue officer, I was like, man, like, this Keenan guy, he's coaching us, and like, I like his model. He comes in, he speaks, he moderates this all day work session, and you know, we're going over all these new ideas. I was like, one day, dude, I want to do what he's doing. I remember that 8 years ago. I was like, one day, like, because it was brand new. You know, I don't know if you were new to it or what, but I remember we were a client, and I just loved the edgy shit that you were coming out with, because it wasn't like, oh, you need to use spin selling bullshit. And like, it was like hardcore strategies, tactics, and like execution, no radical transparency, really. And I loved it, and it resonated really well with me. Walk us through Two Wire to a sales guy.
Well, that was okay. So Two Wire gets bought by a company out of Europe, and they let go of pretty much all the North American sales team, which I was part of, including my boss. And so I had a choice. I try to find a new job, or start a consultant, or do something, start another company. Well, 2 years before the Two Wire transition, I started a blog in 2009 called The Sales Guy.
And this is right around, I think, the time, 2 years later is when you coached me, I think. Keep going.
So 2009, start a sales blog called The Sales Guy, and I start blogging every day for basically 712 days. And over that period of time, people started taking notice, you know, people who were already in the space. And so I started going to conferences and started meeting the people at the conferences, from the Jill Konraths, the Iannarinos, to the Mike Weinbergs. And so start building relationships with them. And they start sharing my stuff on Twitter. And that gets me more exposure. And then my blog is listed at the top, sales blog by Sales, what's that magazine? Sales, it'll come to me in a second.
Selling Power Magazine?
No, the other one. Oh my God. Anyways, geez, I'm getting nervous about my memory. This is ridiculous. Anyways, so just started getting all this exposure, and then about 2 years in.
Oh, Entrepreneur Magazine. Well, you were in Entrepreneur Magazine, Post, Forbes.
It's out of the UK. I'm still. Don't worry about it. It'll come to me.
No worries.
So that started getting more exposure, more and more exposure. More people. Then people started calling me, and then almost within 2 or 3 months of the Two Wire thing going down, someone called me from Florida, oddly enough, and said, "Hey, I've been reading your blog. I have some challenges. Do you do consulting?" And I was like, "What are you looking for?" And they told me like I could do that around my job, Two Wire job. So I said yes. And they said, "How much?" I said, "This much." And she said, "Okay." I'm like, "Ooh, that was easy." So I had done 1 or 2 of those types of gigs, and then when Two Wire went down, I decided to write a blog post or something. I don't know how I did it. It said, "I am now consulting. I'm done. I'm now doing this for consulting." And literally just went to my blog and said, "Everybody, okay, now I'm a consultant," and started going to different events. And it's just been from then, it's the same thing. This took off.
Wow. So when did you start posting content? Like, were you a year into, you were posting content for a while before going full-time on a sales
2 years,
guy.
712 days. Yeah, 2 years.
Okay, so you did 712 posts before going full-time.
Yeah.
That's a shitload of content. What made you, because I write a lot of content now because of guys like you inspired me. Like, how did you, why did you wake up and say, I'm going to write every day? Like, where does that come from?
So remember I said, it's not just enough to work hard, but that you actually have to be thinking. This is the quintessential example of you have to be thinking. So when I started Create Buzz, we were developing it, right? And there was a big algorithm component. right? Finding someone to build the algorithm. It was a huge algorithm component. And back then, algorithms weren't that big of a deal. I was way ahead of the curve on that one.
Way early. Way early. I mean, now algorithms like the past 5 to 10 years have gotten massive.
Yeah.
But you were probably at the onset.
Yes, and I was in Silicon Valley. I literally had to go find someone who could build it, right? So I found some guy at University of Colorado. Another story for another day. So while they're building it, I'm thinking I want to create some buzz, no pun intended. I want to create some buzz. I want people to know what's coming. I just don't want to just land out there. And I didn't know what to do. So I just decided to create a blog. Now, what triggered me to create the blog, I'm not sure. But I created the blog, and it was written by our mascot, which was an ant. And the reason it was an ant with a megaphone. And the reason our mascot was an ant with a megaphone was because in Chris Anderson's book, The Long Tail, he has a statement that says, now the ants have megaphones because all the little people have megaphones because of the internet, because it can go viral. And anybody, right? I don't know if you ever read the book.
Yeah.
So
that's a long time ago.
Yes, that's what we were trying to do with Create Buzz. Is we were trying to give the little guy the ability for it. So he had a really cool piece of something, sort of like BuzzFeed does now, but just differently, right?
Yeah.
So, not BuzzFeed, Buzz now. What is that? That
BuzzSumo? No.
There's my daughters are on it all the time. Just keep showing all these viral videos all day long. Anyways, doesn't matter. So we're just trying to give the little guy a chance to get seen and get promoted, right? So by writing that blog before the product was done, it got us an audience. And then we finally launched Create Buzz. 2 communities took off right away. So I remember that stuck with me. So then when that was done, I was like, look, I had a hard time getting a job, right? Because remember I told you my career went so fast that the level that I wanted to play at was usually many years behind my number of experience and my age. People were 45, 50.
Yeah.
So I said, screw this. I'll write a blog every day about sales and I'll build a small following. 100, 500, 3,000 people. And then if I ever need a job again, just like when Create Buzz comes out, I'll say, hey, I'm looking for a job. And these people will know me, not because they know me, but from reading my stuff and thinking it's good. And say, hey, this guy's good. You should hire him. That was my thought. That was the logic.
Dude, that's incredible. I mean, I totally get it too with the Create Buzz. It all ties together, like how that idea would come back to you and you'd be like, okay. I don't know why it came back to you when you were at 2. Like, why did that come back to you though while you were working at 2? Because you have a job.
Because I knew it takes time.
Oh, yeah.
It takes time. I knew that I can't wait till I'm out of a job and then start writing. Like, I knew it took time. It's a plane. I have to go down the runway first. I didn't know what the runway was. So I was like, start now.
And you knew that you were going to write about, hey, I want to write about sales because I'm passionate about it?
Well, no, because that's the job I was going to want to get.
Got it. So if I write a lot about sales, if I'm up against the 50-year-old with a lot of experience who's older and seasoned, they'll see all my shit. They'll know I know what I've got what it takes.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That's
every time they say, tell me how you would do this, I'm like, oh, I wrote a blog on this. Boom, go read it, or go read it. And I can write a blog post one day and say, I'm looking for a job. Anybody can help me out. And the hundreds of readers or thousands of readers I thought I would have might be able to help me out. Little did I know I was at 20,000 views a day. So it just took off.
No, I remember, dude, because I remember, I love that. And then you launched Sales Guy, and your first few clients just came off right from all the content.
Yes, that's exactly right.
How did you get involved with, how did you pitch or get in contact with Scott, who ran the Google search agency, who was my former CEO, who was an incredible entrepreneur, and then Jeff, who was the CRO there, because that was in 2012, 2011. I'm just curious. So you've got this consultancy. This was before all the books. There were a lot of sales consultants out there. You could hire any of them, and a lot of them were working out of the basement to guys that had 5, 10 books. We hired you, and then we also hired Jill Konrath, and I'm like, okay, I know Jill, she's got the 3 books. Who the hell is Keenan? Back in 2012, you had the blog, I just never heard of you. And then you came in and you did this straight fire all day session. I loved it. And I'm like, shit, one day I want to do what he's doing. How did you how were you growing the business? How did you sell, Scott to come in? I'm just curious, was it all inbound? Was it all you prospecting? How did you grow the business?
From a business perspective, my business up until just a month ago has all been inbound. Now 8 years of straight inbound. 8 years of straight inbound. Yep.
Because of the freaking content engine?
Yes.
Every day.
And I shouldn't say the only reason, but the main reason we now went to outbound is because I want to grow faster. And and we have gap selling and gap selling training and blah, blah, blah. So we just hired a salesperson who's doing outbound now. But it's been all inbound for 8.5 years, didn't do any outbound. Scott,
wow.
Look, I'm not a religious man. I'm not how do you say, I'm not a religious man. I'm not a spiritual person, right?
Yeah,
but every once in a while, I'm like, So I call it luck. If any entrepreneur, any successful person tells you there's not a bit of luck involved, they're full of shit. And they're gonna crash and burn one of these days because that ego is gonna get in the way. So in spite of all the stuff that I did right, some luck came my way. And so one of those was Scott. Scott was a big cornerstone client for like 8 or 9 months when I didn't have tons of clients. And it just so happened that it worked out with him in the time that it did. So he and I went to high school together. And we were like best buddies in high school. And
oh my gosh, dude. I didn't know that.
So we were like best buddies in high school he's 2 years younger than me or something like that. My senior year and his sophomore, junior or something. And we have some great stories. We'll tell you offline anyways. But so he and I were really close in high school. We stayed close after that for a while. He actually moved to Vail and we were pretty tight. But then somehow right around 26, 27, 25, whatever, we went our separate ways. And he moved to Cleveland. And I hadn't talked to him in 10 years, maybe even 15 years, right? And somehow he found my blog and was like, hey, Keenan, I've been reading your blog and I just inherited this sales team of this company we bought. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? So we started talking. And
because he bought the Google search agency. That's right.
And I was just going through a divorce on top of it all. And so he and I would spend up hours and hours at night just talking about family and divorce and all that crap. And he was super helpful as a friend. And then he bought this company and he's like, I need help. And I gave him a few ideas. He's like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. So that's how he brought me on. And that was perfect timing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was like right when you had a small subset of clients. So Fathom became like one of your big clients. I remember you were doing like monthly calls, quarterly workshops. Like it was great because I got to learn a lot, from them, which was awesome. And Scott, by the way, is like one of the best. Like I try my whole culture that I build. I've just been trying to copy everything that he did at the Google search agency. Okay, so outside of that, everything that you learned, successes and failures of growing a sales guy, and then we're going to get into your top sales secret. So you have to have like crazy successes, crazy learning experiences from building this sales consulting company. Walk us through some of the top secrets that you've learned there. Or has it just been roses and sunshine because of all the inbound and the content?
It hasn't been roses and sunshine, but it's been there's been a few times where a couple times I was panicked because, like I told you, I got divorced or separated 3 months after starting this, and then had to. And then once the divorce went through, had to, lost half of my net worth and then had to pay the ex a certain amount of money based on what I made as a executive, not what I was making in my new gig. So
that's the worst.
Yeah. So I had some pretty meaty obligations. And so, there were a couple of times where I was like, if these checks don't come in from these clients, I don't know how I'm going to pay a bill. I remember I have a close aunt and she gave me a check for 10 grand. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to need it, but if this check doesn't come in by this X period of time, I'm going to need it. And about 5 years ago, I found it in a drawer. I'm like, oh, I got to get this back to her. So I never needed it, but that was the closest.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. That I, they paid and I was, and got more business in between that and it kept growing. So I don't want to say it's been all rosy, but it's been pretty good, and I think
that's awesome.
I think really now the question is going to be is how well we scale this. That's been the hardest piece. Is we're making more and more money, but we're not scaling. Well, we haven't scaled, right? It's primarily been me doing it, and more people wanting me, but not. Yeah. It's more like this than this.
I'd love to see you have like an online learning platform.
Working on that right now. Yes.
Because then you could scale Keenan to 1 billion people without having to worry about it.
Yes, that is in the works for 2019.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I got some ideas there and some things that I've just studied because like selling for IBM Interactive and Google, trying to scale services is so difficult. But you could do it if you do it smart and you do it all recorded, which is why I try to record all this shit now. Yeah. Okay, so, let's dive into, I mean, actually, no, I want to ask one question. Biggest things that you've seen from your most successful clients, there's got to be things that they're doing. Like, I'm looking at you as like the Jim Collins of coaching sales teams, right? Like Jim Collins, great. He went to Stanford. He studied all the successful companies that did super well and then shared those secrets. Like, what are you seeing from all the sales teams that you're coaching that are doing really well? What are they doing?
4 things right. They have the right strategy in place.
Okay.
They have the right structure to support that strategy. There's nothing worse than a great strategy in place, but the structure doesn't support it. Then they hire and develop the best people. And then they are fanatical and maniacal about developing processes that enable, support, drive, and make efficient the execution of the strategy.
Okay. Now, is this your top secret, or are you just dropping these 4?
Yes, that's what I see most customers do.
Okay.
So
right strategy, right structure, best people, and fanatical about building processes.
Yeah.
I love that. And when you say right structure, like, okay, the right strategy, like, is that like picking a niche and getting rich? Is that, what do you mean by that?
It could be part of it, but so this is from a sales strategy perspective, right? So let's say a sales strategy is to go after new logos and to penetrate, let's say, new logos at a certain size in a certain region or type of customer, and to go after certain pieces in your existing base. Okay, great. So your structure now is, how are you going to structure your organization to do that? Are you going to have one salesperson that then calls the new logos and calls the existing base, or are you going to separate them, right? Is it going to be inbound and outbound? Are you going to have or is it going to be just outbound or just inbound? So how are you going to build your sales organization, and what roles are you going to create to go after and execute the strategy?
Yeah.
Right?
That makes a lot of sense. And by the way, if I get a lot of questions from sales startups and software companies that ask, like, hey, we've got some inbound coming in and we're doing outbound. Do you think SDRs should separate inbound and outbound, or do you keep them hybrid?
Absolutely.
Just because you just got to keep them.
Yep.
So that the outbound just stays 24/7 on outbound.
You want that engine turning all the time. Plus, I believe when it comes to the people aspect of it, I think it's a different skill set.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Now, what happens though if inbound dips? You just got a bunch of inbound SDRs sitting around.
Go talk to marketing.
Get on marketing's ass. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. So, and then the structure is, you've got the right strategy, the structure, and then you got to hire the best people, and then building the processes, fanatical about the processes. You know, what do you mean there? I know we talked a little bit about it earlier in the show, but
everything you do to make the salespeople successful is the process. So if you're management, how are you assessing and evaluating the team on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis? How are you tracking the inbound leads? How are you building your outbound content strategy? Like how you do anything are the processes. And if you're not building really good processes to make that stuff happen, or you're not implementing, like, so technology fits under the process piece to me. If you're not doing the right things and you're not being deliberate in developing the processes and the tools to get you there, it doesn't really matter, right?
Wow.
I mean, you could have the best strategy for digging holes. You could have the best structure to maximize it. You could have the best people, but then if you give them all shovels, right?
You're stuck. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay. So, sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Keenan, if you had to give one sales secret to when you first started in selling to maximize your sales success, if you had to hire a whole new team and give them one thing written down on one piece of paper to maximize selling, going outbound for you, and maximize their sales success, what is your number one top sales secret?
Find the gap. Find the gap.
And you may have a book about this that just
recently
came out. What is that? What do you mean gap?
Look, when people buy something, they're looking to change. That's the bottom line, right? Whether they know they want to change and they come to you saying, help me change, or you get a hold of them and you give them enough information that they realize they have to change. When someone's trying to change, their natural decision process is comparative. And most of us don't sell this way, and we don't think about it when we're selling this way. And it's comparative like this. Where am I today? What's going on? Do I like it? What's the impact? How's it affecting me, etc.? What could I have tomorrow? What could be different tomorrow? And the space between where they are today and where they could be tomorrow is the gap. And that gap dictates the value, the sense of urgency, the intrinsic motivation, the desire to move, all of it. And if you don't know the gap, then you really don't know how they're going to decide. If you don't know how they're going to decide, you can't influence the sale. And then our job is not to be order takers, but to be influencers. And the gap allows you to influence the sale.
Ah, I love that. It's I wholeheartedly believe in the gap, dude. This is incredible. I mean, because I always try to sell where they're at today, where they are tomorrow, following the gap strategy that you teach and everything, all the strategies and execution roadmaps to get there and the ROI and the revenue to get there. I feel like the gap is one of the most critical ways to influence change. Like, what have you seen, why the gap and why now? Like, okay, so if I'm at 8 figures in revenue, 10 mil, and I want to get to 100 mil, and I want to do this fucking fast, the gap, like, how would you assess that? How would you figure out the difference in going from 10 mil to 100 mil and like what we would need to do to make that happen?
Yeah.
Like,
so one of the things that people do is they think it always has to do with money, right? So someone says, all right, we're trying to go from 10 mil, what'd you say, 10 mil to 100 mil?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of a big spread, and that takes a long time. But let's say we're to shrink it. Yeah. Someone's saying I'm trying to grow from 80 million to from 80 million to 100 million, right? We want to do that in 2 years. So 10% of, all right, let's make it 60 mil, right? So that's 25 to 30% growth. That's CAGR, right? It's a lot of growth over 2 years. So when they so they say we want to do this. Well, one of the first things I'm going to say is why? Why do you want to grow from 60 to 100 mil, right? And then I say, well, we want to make money. We want to do this and do that. Well, you got to know what those this and that are. We want to go to new markets. You want to do that. Well, why do you want to go into those new markets, right? And eventually you're going to get to one or two core things. We want to go public. We want to sell the company. We want to be able to leave something to our children. Like at the end, like there's going to be a whole bunch of things in there. Once you get to those core, now you know the true gap. They want to make more money because they want to buy a house in freaking Europe. They want to be able to retire, leave it to their kids. They want to be able to take it public and have a big exit. Their PE firm is expecting this out and they don't want to lose their jobs. Like there's a lot. That's your intrinsic motivation, right? So once you understand the gap, then you got to dig in to find out what the intrinsic motivation is. And once you know that, then you reverse engineer everything back out into how to solve the problem to make that happen.
Wow. So is the takeaways for the audience to execute gap selling? Like, is it just asking a lot of really good questions like why? Well, like, so if the audience, they're going to read your chapter and it's going to say, behind the gap, like you got to execute gap selling, I understand the why. And what would be your recommendations for all of how the audience executes?
To make it easy, because this is not easy shit, right? This is not easy shit. But what I do with for people is I say, look, it's more than just asking questions. There's certain types of information you need to gather. And so what I did was I structured gap selling just as we decide. So the first part of gap selling is you have to do discovery around the current state. You need to understand the current state.
Okay, that makes sense.
How are they doing things today? What is happening? What's preventing them from going there? How do their existing systems set up? How big is the organization? You got to understand all this current state information that's relevant to what you sell, the problems you solve, right? And then even from there, I break the current state down into 5 sections. The physical and literal facts, it's the non-judgmental stuff, right? It's the size of the company, it's where they're located, it's the number of employees, it's the processes they use. It's no judgment, right? Right. Then the next one is the problems. What current state problems are they struggling with, are they dealing with that's causing them issue? Then the third one, which is the most important, is what is the impact of those problems? How are those problems impacting the organization, right? Then when you have that, then you got to figure out what's the emotional impact to them. Are they angry, frustrated, scared, whatever? And the last one is what's the root cause? What is causing the problems to exist in the first place, okay? Once you know that from the current state and you can articulate it and you're clear, then you flip it and now you have to start figuring out what's the future state. Okay, understanding where you are now. Where do you want to go? What are you trying to accomplish? Why are you trying to accomplish it? It's the same thing, physical and literal, right? So physical and literal is this today. What do you want the physical and literal to be tomorrow? If these are the problems today, what problems don't you want to have tomorrow? Like, how do you want these problems to go? What do you want to come out of that? Then what's the impact of solving those problems, right? So if I solve these problems, what happens? There's new markets, there's this, there's that, right? That there's the ability to sell, the ability to go public, to buy my freaking mansion and wherever, to leave it to my kids. I don't know. Like, that's right. And the last one is the emotions you're going to have, and then it's the flip of the root cause. Root cause. It's the solution. The solution. What future solution will address these root causes, right? So once you have all of that in place, now you know what the gap is. And you know if it's a big gap or small gap. And then based on the size of the gap, you know the probability of them buying and how much time and effort they'll put in to make it work. And a lot of times customers never look at it that way. So when you go through this whole process, you've helped them see the situation better than they did when they came in.
And how do you tie monetary numbers to that gap? Like, how do you know if it's a small problem or a big problem that they're willing to solve and pay for?
You have to compare the current in the future. You'll know it. Like if you did it right, again, sometimes it's money. We're 60 million, we want 100 million. Great. How many? I'm making this up now, but how many markets are you in? We're in 4. Why aren't you in more? Well, we can't do this, this, and this. Right. So there's a problem. Right. So what's the impact of not being in those markets? Here's a good example. What's the impact of not being in those markets? Our competition is, and they're creeping up on us. We have a better product, but we can't get in those markets. We can't keep them at bay. They're using it as an end around strategy to keep us from growing. We got to get in those markets. So now I understand that this just isn't about the money anymore. There's actually a competitor that's using the markets they're not in to get them. So now, so you tell me how much urgency there is. Like all of a sudden, that's super urgent. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's self-explanatory if you do it right.
Wow. So behind the gap, you got to leverage gap selling. And, where am I at today? Where do you need to go tomorrow? From here, from current state to future state is the gap. You got to judge you got to use discovery to figure out the physical state, the problems, the impact, the emotional impact, the root cause. Then the future state, same thing, problems, impact solving, emotional impact, and future solution. What is that worth? That's what they're willing to pay. Show them current and future state using the principles of gap selling. Amazing, my man. I still have a lot of questions with that, but I feel like for everyone to get the full solution of gap selling, they should probably buy the book. Where can people, this has been incredible, Keenan. Thank you so much for taking the time today. And I knew you have to catch a flight. Where can people buy the gap selling book, and where can people follow you, subscribe to you, connect with you?
They can find me on Amazon. Let me give you one thing. When you did the current state and future state, to give you one thing to put this in perspective. When people buy, we've all heard the phrase, when people make a choice, right? There's 2 things that drive their choice. They both begin with a P. Do you know what they are?
No. Tell me.
Yes, you do. Pleasure and pain.
Pleasure and pain.
Right? We all know this, right? You've heard this before. Entire life is based on
2 P's. Pleasure and pain.
So either we make decisions to move towards pleasure or away from pain, right? They have said for years.
I love that. I never heard that before.
Oh yeah, and so it's that simple. Everything you do is towards pleasure, away from pain, right? So they've shown that unfortunately people are more inclined to move away from pain. That's a bigger motivator than towards pleasure, right?
Really?
So i.e. the idea of working out, right? If I work out, I have a great body, everybody likes me, I get more dates, I'm more popular. That's pleasure, right? Well, it's painful to get up off the couch. It's uncomfortable to read it. So what do? They avoid that pain as opposed to that pleasure, right? So the reason I'm bringing this up to end this on this is, to my knowledge, the way gap selling is structured, it's the only selling methodology that uses both simultaneously. Because your pain is your current state, your pleasure is your future state. So I work with both of those to get you we start with your pain. Tell me about your current state. And we get into all those pains and we get into them. And then we then transition you into the future state with the pleasure. And so basically out of that now, people decide which one's going to motivate them, but we put them both on the table. Most sales methods spend most of the time strictly on the future state. What do you need? What do you want? What do you want to do? And have them living in the future state, and don't for a second anchor them in the current state and why they should make that move in the first place.
I love that. And it's probably why I was selling. I feel like I was selling with gap selling maybe from your coaching before you even wrote the book, because all I would do is paint current state, future state, the strategies to get there, the ROI, and I 10x my income using Seamless and these approaches and the gap selling principles is among the other 150 authors and experts that I studied. Like, it's incredible. I mean, this is how I sold for 7 to 10 years. And I know personally it had a massive impact on my life before Keenan even wrote the book. So I love it, man. Paint the picture. You know, you got to leverage the pain and the pleasure, you know, tie it to the gap and showcase current, future. We're going to get you there. And here's why it's worth spending money on it right now to create the urgency. Oh, okay. Where can the audience connect, follow, subscribe to you for more info?
Keenan dot, because you have to put 2 things. If you go to salesguy.com, you'll find me easily there. And then Amazon.com for gap selling.
For the book, for both books. And by the way, why did you just move to first name for LinkedIn? Curious.
People have been calling me my last name for years, and it just seemed like a smart branding choice.
I love that, dude. I want to drop my last name and just go by Brandon, but I'm thinking, I don't know yet. Dude, that's awesome. Connect with Keenan on LinkedIn. He posts a ton of content on, sign up for his newsletter on the website. What's the website again for the audience?
Salesguy.com. Yep.
And you've got all the fire content. And then Amazon, Gap Selling hit it recently. Buy the books, get on there. And Keenan, thank you so much for joining us today, dropping all your sales secrets. And audience, thank you for joining this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Pick up a copy of the book at secretsalesbook.com. That's secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.